Hey guys, this episode of Les Parrott was interesting. I read a book, I took notes, I was prepared for the podcast. When we got on the show, Les said, hey, I've got an idea. We've got this cool thing for marriages. And I went, wow, this is awesome. Let's do it. So this interview was totally organic, winging it a little bit, to be honest with you. We talked about Les Parrott's survey called Better Love. This is a survey for couples to assess their marriage. Man, this is a great interview. You're going to love the way this goes. Men in the Arena Army, we salute you. Hey guys, thanks for listening to this episode of the Men in the Arena podcast, Spotify's #1 podcast for Christian men. I'm Jim Ramos, your guide and host for today. Our goal is to help you become the best version of the man that God created you to be inside the stress bubble of life and beyond. Hey guys, I want to jump into our hero story today. Remember, our hero stories are supplied by you. We want to hear from you. We want to hear about what God is doing in your life. We want to hear about how God has changed you, how God has used our ministry to impact your life. And this comes from a 27-year-old named Brandon. Brandon writes, I'm 27 years old, married with no children yet. Your book, Strong Men, Dangerous Times, is hitting home, and I know it's going to help me be the man I need to be. My wife needs me to be. My kids will need me to be one day, and that God has called me to be. Now listen to this. He says this. I love it when guys start preaching at me. He says, never stop fighting the good fight. In me, we've gained one more soldier, and we're going to build the largest army of men this world has ever seen in our time. Man, Brandon, you got me fired up, man. So cool to say that you're part of our army. Man, I'm excited. I'm ready to just charge hell with a squirt gun right now. So, hey, hit us up with your address, info@meninthearena.org, and we'll send you some swag in the mail. So thanks a lot, Brandon. Guys, make sure you stay tuned to the end of the podcast today, and we'll share one of the man laws that will be in our book called Man Laws, 100 Ways to Lose Your Man Card and Rules to Live By. That book is going to be a free download in about the next month or two. So, guys, hang on, be watching. The time is coming. We're so excited today to have our guest on, Les Parrott. Yes, this is Roger Parrott's brother, who he had on the show about 4 months ago. Les is a psychologist and #1 New York Times best-selling author. He and his wife, Leslie, are co-founders of eHarmony. So I did not know that. That was a cool fact. His books have sold over 5 million copies, including the book Saving Your Marriage Before It Starts and his book Love Like That. He's the creator of the Better Love Assessment, which will be our subject for today. Les has appeared on CNN, Fox News, Good Morning America, The Today Show, The View, and of course, Oprah. Les, it's great to have you on the show.
Thanks, buddy. It's so good to be with you. And it sounds like since you already had Roger on here, I'm here to correct all the stuff that he should have said and didn't say right. So,
well, you're definitely the better looking of the brothers. So, well, I'm excited. You know, I've got 20 years as a Church of the Nazarene elder before I launched my ministry, and I moved on to a different denomination. But man, I love the Nazarene denomination, and I'm excited that you've been a part of that as well. And you've got some roots there. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your story and give our listeners some context?
Yeah. So, well, speaking of brothers, I have 2 older brothers and grew up in a home that I was very blessed to have with my dad and mom that were loving and, kind of showed us how marriage could be done at the highest level. So no complaints on my home front. Married Leslie. Now, we have the same name. I'm Leslie and she's Leslie. We dated all through high school, all through college, and then we got married. And it's as complicated as you might guess because we're, exact same name, Leslie, but even more complicated. I'm the third, which means my dad's name, Leslie, my grandfather's name, Leslie, I'm named Leslie, and then I married a Leslie. So when we had our first son, we had to give him a name. And so we called him John.
Yes.
John Leslie.
Oh, there you go.
And he has a younger brother, Jackson Leslie. So we have to each have that tether of Leslie to us. But yeah, so 2 boys and one's in graduate school, actually over in the UK, and the other is undergrad in New York. And so that's the stage of our family these days. And we're loving life. We have, Jim, a BHAG. Do you know what a BHAG is?
Big, hairy, audacious goal. Thank you, Bill Hybels.
That's it. And so our BHAG is to see the divorce rate reduced by a third, particularly in local churches, in our lifetime.
Praise
And
God.
I know that some people hear that and go, well, good luck with that. That is a BHAG. We're more optimistic about that than
Absolutely.
ever. And do you know that for every single percentage point that we drop the divorce rate, the lives of more than 1 million children are positively impacted? Think about that. That's just for one single percentage point, and the ripple effect that has for generations. So that's our BHAG. That's what gets us up in the morning to do what we do. And it's the kind of thing that I think it would be the single greatest social revolution the church has ever seen, even if we just got it into double digits, lowered it by 10%. And there's no reason that we can't. We have the tools. We know what works, what doesn't. And in fact, we're going to be talking about that today on your program.
Well, I'll tell you what, Les, I appreciate what you're doing so much, because marriages are a disaster in the church. That they're no different than outside the church. And every marriage that we can affect, we're focused on men because I believe when a man gets it, everyone wins. And my BHAG, and I haven't shared this with a lot of people, but our BHAG is to be a household name in America, that everybody would have heard of our ministry. And we've got, between our videos, our social media, and our podcast, right now, 1.6% of Americans have heard of us. That's over 6 million people. But we've got 330 million out there. So when people look at these BHAGs, like lowering the divorce rate in America by a third, they say it can't be done. And then you and I say, well, but the Bible says that which is impossible with man is not impossible with God. And so, man, anything we can do to partner with you in this, you and your wife, Leslie, you've been married how long? Got to be close to 45 years now, right?
Oh, I'm not that old, but 35 maybe, 34 actually.
Oh, okay. Well, I was wondering, because I've been married 30 years. And you've been doing marriage ministry for 30 years. I just figured you guys were a little older. All right. No wonder you look so good. You're not that old.
I'm definitely younger than my brother. We got married in 1984, right out of college. So is that 34 years ago? Close to it.
Well, no, that'd be more than that. We got married in 1992, and that's 30 years. So you've been married 38 years.
38? Man, I am old.
I was going to say, you might be older than you think.
I'm a psychologist, not a mathematician. So.
I got you. Well, I'll tell you what. I love what you and Leslie do, and I love Gary Chapman and his love languages. And I'm really excited because you've put together a program called Love Like That. And I think this is going to be a tremendous impact on marriages. And our guys that are listening, these guys, our target audience is 28 to 45. And these guys are married. They're raising children. Man, these guys are in the stress bubble. Hey guys, I'm so excited about this program that you developed, Les. Is called Better Love, and you've partnered with Gary Chapman, some of his material, and this sounds really unique and really exciting. And if there's ever a day in history that needs stronger marriages, it is today. So can you tell us a little bit more about this program?
Yeah, who doesn't want better love, right? It doesn't matter whether you're doing great and in the upper 10% of satisfaction, we can all do better. And maybe you're hurting, maybe you're struggling, maybe you're barely holding on. We all want better love. Mm-hmm. And so what we're going to talk about is a really practical tool that does a couple of different things. Number one, it's going to increase your level of self-awareness. Now, what we're talking about here is an assessment, and we're going to get into it, what it is and how it works. And by the way, it's something that is non-threatening, because I know as soon as I say the word assessment, some guys are going, "Oh, that's the last thing I want is to be graded on my marriage relationship." That's not what this is. This is a roadmap. This is a highly customized roadmap for lifelong love. And so you answer a series of questions and it generates this customized roadmap. But it does two big things. I want to kind of back up from it before we get into the nitty gritty and say, here's the promise. Number one, it'll heighten your self-awareness. Now, why is that important? Because awareness is the hallmark of well-being. It's the hallmark of emotional health. And here's something you need to know. Your marriage can only be as healthy as you are. So that in and of itself, just heightened self-awareness is worth the investment that you can make in just a few minutes with this tool called Better Love we're going to talk about. But that's a big thing. All right. So self-awareness. And by the way, why is that, why does that matter? Well, I came into my youngest son's room last summer before he went off to school, and he was laying on his bed, and he had a guitar, I think, kind of on one side of his bed and one on the ground, and he had books that were open all over the place and some clothes laying around. And I came in and I said, Jack, I said, this bedroom is a disaster. And he said, it is? And he kind of looks around and he goes, oh, yeah, I guess it is, And being the psychologically sophisticated dad that I am, I didn't say clean it up. I just said, this is really crazy in here. And then I just walked away. And about 2 days later, I come back. Guess what? It wasn't so crazy anymore. He picked it up because he was now aware of it. Yes. And sometimes it's just aware. We psychologists like to say awareness is curative. Once you become aware of something, then you can do something about it.
Interesting.
So that's the first big deliverable that this tool, Better Love, will give. And then the second thing, and we'll circle back around to it, is deeper empathy. Okay? Heightened self-awareness, number one, and number two, deeper empathy. And empathy, of course, is that capacity to put ourselves in each other's shoes and see the world through each other's eyes. And it's the single most important skill set I think we need to be working on as human beings. It reduces 9 out of 10 times, it reduces conflict. Think about this. This isn't just armchair psychology. We know this from piles of research. 90% of our conflicts are resolved in marriage if all we do is accurately see that issue from our partner's perspective.
Wow.
Think about that, Jim. Wow. That's a pretty good payoff, right?
Yeah.
And it has all kinds of other benefits. But that's what we're about to talk about. That's what it'll do. Heighten your self-awareness and deepen your capacity for empathy. And so should I just kind of unpack the process?
Yeah, my next question was, okay, so I obtain your program. What does the program ask me to do to achieve those two ends?
Yeah. So somebody just goes on to betterlove.com and they buy this little assessment. It's less than what you spent on your lunch probably with your wife today, and $35. And you will then answer a series of questions. It takes about 10 minutes. So you're going to answer a series of questions, about 100 questions or so. And you do that independent of each other. You're not conferring or consulting with each other. It's just you're answering those questions. And then once you've both answered them independently, it generates this little 10-page report. And it's infographic. It's very pleasing. And that little infographic report is something that you guys can walk through together. And we're going to walk through some of the pages to give you a sense of what it is. But here's another big promise. No shame, no blame, no finger pointing. This is not a guilt trip. This isn't, oh, man up, you need to be better at being a husband. It's not that at all. It's fun. It's the kind of thing you want to take on your date night. And in fact, it comes with an action plan of 4 suggested date night topics. And you bring this little report with you and cover a couple pages within it. So, but that's the apparatus. That's like the process. All right. So you just go online, answer a few questions. And by the way, let me tell you something, Jim. Every guy that's listening to us right now can be a hero in his home to For this sure. very night when he says to his wife, hey, I bought this little assessment for us to do about our marriage. And the wife is going to, after she falls over and faints, she's going to stand up and go, you're kidding me. Yeah, let's do this. Because women are highly motivated to do this. It's usually the guy that's dragging his feet because he thinks he's going to get punished. And that's not what Better Love is. Make sense?
Well, it absolutely makes sense. And I'll tell you what, when a man is proactive in these areas, it's going to increase every aspect of his marriage. So I have a question, though, and you're the expert on marriage, not myself, but from what I read, couples that agree on the most things tend to have the most satisfied relationships. Is this an assessment? And I'm a licensed facilitator for another organization. Is this one of those assessments where it judges them on couple agreements, or how does it determine her score and his score? How does it link them together?
Yeah, it's not about that. It's not, you know, we you've heard the phrase, of course, opposites attract.
Correct.
We always say opposites attract and then they attack.
Absolutely.
And so you're exactly right. The more things you have in common, the easier life is, particularly when that comes to core values. That means values around your personal faith, about family values, morality, ethics, the things that give life meaning. And that's what creates a team in marriage. If you don't have those in common, it's really difficult to feel like you're a team. Even how you manage money, your philosophy on money management is a huge deal. I've talked with Dave Ramsey ad nauseum about this, because if you can't get the same philosophy of money together in your marriage, you're always going to feel like you're on separate teams and it's a competition. So this assessment, let's walk through it a little bit, because it's
absolutely
not about having to agree with everything. In fact, sometimes just the opposite, starting with your personalities. And so the very first page of this report looks at how God designed you, the DNA that makes up your personality. This is not something you chose. This is not something you're going to change. You were born with it, okay? And so what we're looking at, when you get this report, it has this kind of like a flywheel, like a pedal, you know, these 8 different pedals around this wheel, and we just call it the personality pinwheel. And there's 8 different kinds, like the achieving spouse, the pioneering spouse, the energizing spouse, the affirming spouse, and so forth. And so this just gives you a really quick little snapshot of where you land by literally putting your picture, because you upload your photo when you take this, and your spouse's photo will land somewhere on this little circle. And one of the things that's helpful to know, this is not heavy, this is not complicated, by the way.
Absolutely.
The upper half of this little circle is people that are task-oriented. Jim, are you task-oriented or people-oriented? You just know intuitively which you are.
I'm task-oriented. So I'm 2/3 choleric and 1/3 sanguine. So if that gives you an idea.
Yep. So you're task-oriented just like I am. That means that you love a to-do list. And the very first thing on your to-do list says, make to-do list, right? And you're probably the kind of guy that if you accomplish something during your day that wasn't on your to-do list, what do? You write it on your to-do list and you scratch it right off, right? Because it feels good to get tasks done. Okay.
Yes.
Now, my wife happens to be people-oriented rather than task-oriented. So when she comes into my office, and she doesn't even have to say anything. She just puts her head in knowing that she wants to talk with me. More often than not, I hold up one finger. I don't even look at her. I keep my eyes on the email that I'm writing or whatever, and I put up one finger, which means what? Give me a minute, right? I want to finish my task. Once I finish my task, now I can focus on you. If I walk into her office, say, hey, you got a minute? She drops everything. She spins around her chair. Of course, come on in. What's going on? She never holds up a finger and says, because she's people oriented. So that's the big distinction there. And then the other big distinction in our personalities is whether it's really about our pace. And are we fast paced or slow paced? Now, I'm fast paced. I mean, I'm the kind of guy that says, why are we still talking about this? Let's just go do this, right? A committee meeting? Are you kidding me? We don't need another meeting about this. Let's just put it into action, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Now, the person that is slow pace, let's just give it some time. Things have a way of working out. Let's just see how. I came home from a lecture at the university a while back, and I said to Leslie, I came up the steps, kissed Leslie. It's about 10 o'clock at night. And she said, hey, the kitchen sink is backed up. And I said, it is? And I walk around the corner. Sure enough, it's backed up. I pick up my phone. I start to call my friend George, who's a plumber in our neighborhood. She goes, no, don't call George. It's too late. George and Arliss, they're already going to be asleep. I said, are you kidding? He's going to love it that our sink is backed up. He'll be here in 5 minutes. She said, no, 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 don't do that. It's embarrassing. She said, let's just go to bed. Let's see how the sink is doing in the morning. I said, do you think little fairies are going to come in here and work on our sink while we're sleeping? I am fast paced.
Yeah.
Let's solve the problem now. She's like, let's give it time. Let's see how it has a way of working it out. Which one of those are you, by the way, Jim? Fast paced or slow paced?
Fast paced all the way.
Yeah.
Slow paced. Yeah. Right. And so is my wife. So we're both moving and shaking. Yeah.
I get it. All right. So that would probably put you on the 8 options in this circle. You're what we would probably call a pioneering spouse. A pioneering spouse. You might be achieving, you might be energizing, but pioneering is right there. And it's kind of like the Apostle Paul. He was definitely pioneering, fast-paced and task-oriented. He's going to build a church, man. Get out of his way. Yeah. And nothing can slow him down. Unless you put him in prison. Oh, wait, you put him in prison? He borrowed a pencil and he happened to write a few things that we're still reading. Okay.
Yes, for sure.
So that's the kind of person that's fast-paced and task-oriented. But then you have people that are fast-paced and people-oriented, not task-oriented, but people-oriented. And that might be like Peter, He's like, oh, there's our Lord. I'm going to get out of the boat. I'm going to swim to him, right? Like, this is the kind of person you want to invite to a dinner party. If you're having a party, have somebody that's in this area that we call them affirming spouses, but they're just so relatable and out there and vulnerable and so forth. And so you get the ideas. You move around these different categories. And so what we do with the assessment is give you a little descriptive paragraph about your type, okay? And so you would get a paragraph on the pioneering spouse, and maybe your wife would be pioneering too. But here's the interesting thing. This little paragraph, you think, oh, so I'm getting one of 8 paragraphs. No. They're way more sophisticated than that, because we have 40,000 variables that go into each of these paragraphs.
Oh, wow.
Now, if you know anything about algorithms and coding, you know what a Herculean task this was to put this together.
Wow.
40,000 variables. That means you'll never see this paragraph on anybody else's report. And even if you and your wife have the same personality type, your paragraphs will be different because we thin slice it. We want to look at the very, the distinctives about you, because everybody is unique. There's never been a marriage like yours before, and there never will be again. Because you have your 2 unique personalities and you get them together and it combines something that has never existed. And that's why there's certain things that work for you in your marriage that don't work for your friends, and vice versa. Now, we have universal biblical truths that work for all of us, but there's the things in the weeds. And that's where this little assessment, Better Love, can kind of tease those out and really help you when it comes to deepening your capacity for empathy and, of course, for self-awareness. So that's where we start, Jim, is with personality, just as individuals, your hardwire, your DNA, how God made you. Make sense?
Yeah. So the first category of this assessment, it's a 10-page assessment. The first category is the DNA of your personality, how God made you.
That's it. That's it.
And so there's 4 categories, right?
Yep. 4 big categories in the assessment. That's it.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. So what's the second one?
Now, we haven't finished personality because now we're gonna blow your mind. Okay. Now we're gonna do something that no other assessment in the world does. Okay, and that is look at the chemistry between your 2 personalities. Now, this is awesome. This is where the kind of the levers and the pulleys behind the scenes really kick into high gear to deliver something for you that you've never had before, and that is what happens when you have these 2 unique personalities together, you and your wife, and you may have tons in common. You may be feeling like you're polar opposites. It doesn't matter. There's not a right way and a wrong way. This is not about, oh, you're this way, you need to change. No. You need to lean into that because that's how God made you. You need to be the best version of that you can possibly be. You need to be healthy in that space, okay? But on the second page of personality, we're going to look at the combination of your 2 personalities together and what are the strengths that come out of your relationship because of how the 2 of you are hardwired. We're going to look at things like how each of you is built for decision making and problem solving. Think about this, Jim, how you solve problems. 25% of our conversations in marriage are dedicated to solving problems.
Yeah.
Think about that, right? We're solving problems for all kinds of stuff, how our kids get their homework done, and a problem, hey, we didn't get the spaghetti sauce for dinner tonight. I mean, there's all kinds of big little problems that we're solving all the time. Wouldn't it be helpful to know how God designed you to solve a problem and how God designed your spouse to solve a problem, right? And so I happen, like I've already illustrated, I happen to be an aggressive problem solver. Leslie is a reflective problem solver. If we would have known that early on in our marriage, oh my goodness, so much friction, so much frustration could have been dropped at the wayside because we would understand each other and we wouldn't be trying to change you. Why can't you be more aggressive when it comes to problem solving than I am, right? And after years of marriage, what happens is you, as iron sharpens iron, we help each other become the best version of ourselves. I'll give you a really quick and recent example. This happened yesterday. Our son, our youngest son, he just got accepted into NYU in Manhattan. And so he's headed there for college and here next month. And he's transferring in there. And getting housing in downtown Manhattan is not a small task.
No.
And so we have like 3 to 4 weeks to find him housing. And the university told us he can't get into university housing because it's already all booked. And so 2 nights ago, we were falling asleep. And I said to Leslie, I said, you know something? I just feel like if you called him, if you got the right person, they might find a way for Jackson to find a room. And she goes, they already told us they don't have it. I said, I know. But I said, there's something, I just feel like if we're a little more aggressive on this. And she said, okay, I'm going to call him in the morning. And she's a morning person and I'm not. And so she was the first one up. And so she calls him. She went through 3 different people, finally got to a person that said, you know something, I think we might be able to work something out for your son, Jackson. So she tells me first thing when I get up in the morning, she says, we got it solved. She's so excited. And I said, how did you do it? She said, I just kept asking, what would Les do? What would Les do? And she said, Leslie, would have quit after the first phone call, but I knew you wouldn't. And she said, and that's what we kind of mean here. Our iron sharpening iron. We learn from each other. One way is not better than the other. We all think our way is the best, but there's great value in being slow paced.
Yeah.
I mean, do you want your accountant to be fast-paced or slow-paced? Do you want your heart surgeon to be fast-paced or slow-paced, right? There's certain things that you want. You go take all the time you need. Do it right. Right? Absolutely. Yeah. So that's what this second page does. It looks at the chemistry. It's how we are influenced by each other, by feelings or by facts. What do you think you're influenced more by, Jim? Feelings or facts?
Fact guy all the way.
Facts. Okay.
But I'm highly emotive, but I'm influenced by facts.
So this assessment will tell you that for sure, because there's a little ambivalence in what you just said. I got to tell you, I'm a social scientist. I'm a psychologist, a researcher. Facts are, empirical facts. That's what I make my bread and butter on. But I'm high on feelings. When it comes to being influenced in my marriage by my spouse, if Leslie goes, I don't know what it is, but I just have a feeling that we should do X, Y, Z. I go, I lean into that with her, right? And I'm not the kind of guy that goes, well, let's Google everything and get all the facts together and before we make a decision. And so that's the kind of self-awareness this brings into. And then how you react to change. Are you accepting of change or resistant to change? That's a pretty important thing. Which one of those do you think you are? Accepting of change?
Yeah, I would say I'm an early adopter, but I'm not a pioneer. I'm pretty quick to change, and we like change.
Let me ask you this. Do you like routines and consistency and predictability, or why do you say, why live the same day twice?
It's actually a little bit of both.
Okay.
I have my morning routine, and then it's free for all.
Yeah, I love that. And that brings up a good point. This little assessment is not designed to put you in a box. It's not designed to label you. You can disagree with it. We always say, if you read something that you don't agree with, scratch it out. Before you do that, just ask your spouse, hey, it says here I'm always late to things. I don't think that's true. Do you? And you might be surprised by what she has to say about that.
Ah, yes.
Okay. So there you go. That's section 1. It's all about personality. Make sense?
Love it. I love it.
Okay.
And so now we're on to section 2, right?
Yeah. So section 2 is all about communication, and it's several. These are just practical things, and it's really it's not divided so much into 4 sections as just these little kind of subheads. So communication is the lifeblood of a relationship. It's your marriage will sink or swim based on how well the two of you are communicating. And I got to tell you something here, Jim. This is especially relevant to our audience today with all of the guys listening in. We're not great at listening. Mm-hmm. There's something about our brain, the way that God made the male brain, up in the frontal cortex. It's they sometimes refer to as the decision or the executive decision-making part of the brain. You can kind of think of yourself sitting behind a big executive desk up there and pointing a lot, right? Mm-hmm. This needs to be done. That's got to get it going, blah, 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 right? And so when our wife brings us a problem, oh, my day was so terrible. Linda at the office didn't deliver on XYZ, blah, blah, blah. We just kick in. Our brain is hardwired to kick into problem solving. Yep. That's the last thing, as you know, that our wife wants. She just wants us to listen. And this is not news. You guys, everybody's heard this before. Yep. But what Better Love is going to do is contextualize your specific personality in relationship to doing that. So you now have clues, ways that work for you to get to that space when you recognize, oh, this is a time when my wife just needs me to listen rather than problem solve. Yes. That's empathy, right? Yep. That's the capacity to empathize. So we get into communication, and then after that, we get into turning the page here, intimacy, every guy's favorite topic here, not just emotional intimacy, but physical intimacy. And if you're struggling to have an honest and authentic conversation with your wife about your sex life, this is a great jumping off page to do that. Some people, and it'll be revealed on this, some people are really comfortable talking about sex, and some aren't. And, I have a friend who says, my wife doesn't even want to say the word sex, right? And everybody's comfort level is different, but this gives you kind of an on-ramp to some really valuable conversations about sex if you want to have them, and it gets into your action plan too. And then from there, we get into conflict. Jim, when was the last time you had a conflict with your wife?
So my wife and I, there's another assessment out there.
Yeah, what is it?
We score Prepare and Rich.
That's an awesome assessment.
And so I'm a facilitator for that. Every 10 years we go to counseling, regardless of the state of our marriage. And we're always a conventional couple because we don't do conflict resolution well. So whenever I hear about conflict resolution, I'm like, feed me.
Yeah.
We're like two steamboats kind of headbutting.
Well, first, let me comment on Prepare and Rich, because that's another great tool. Now, you have to be invited. You have to have a counselor, a facilitator invite you to take Prepare and Rich. But if you want to take a really deep dive into, the assessment world, find a facilitator in Prepare and Rich, just like you are. You and your wife are trained in doing that. So I just want to give kudos out there. I'm a big fan of it.
Well, Les, I've got a question, because as I'm listening to you unpack this, I love these 4 categories. I wrote down on here, well, how do I become a facilitator? Do you have facilitators, or is it strictly something that couples go, they pay their fee, they take the test, they get a report? Or, do you have a facilitator, or is this strictly couple by couple?
Well, it's an interesting question. I don't want to confuse our viewers and listeners too much, but we have another assessment called SYMBIS, SYMBIS. That stands for Saving Your Marriage Before It Starts. And that you have to get trained and certified in
Okay.
order to, just like Prepare and Rich. And then you would invite a couple to take it, and then you would debrief the results of the report. So Better Love, you don't need a facilitator. You don't have to see a counselor. It's a light version of that.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, so Symbis would be like 15 to 18 pages. This is 10 pages and takes out all of the like therapeutic, there's no addiction stuff. There's no, stuff that needs kind of an objective voice. It's designed to be upbeat and positive.
I love that, because I have people all the time who are saying, hey, I've got this couple I'm working with. What do I do? And I go, I send them over, but this is a great resource for couples to go through together.
Yeah. And so Symbis, we have a book that we wrote called Saving Your Marriage Before It Starts. And that's what this is. And so it's just a very similar kind of thing, but much more extensive.
Oh, wow.
And then for couples that are already married, it's Symbis Plus. And so anyway, that's a whole nother thing that you have to get trained and certified in. But what we're talking about, Better Love, it's cookies on the bottom shelf. It's just,
I love it,
to get to, and it's scalable. Anybody can take this. In fact, we have whole congregations that will take this. Stephen Furtick, their church uses our Symbis assessment, and a lot of churches do. And he said, I wish every couple in the whole congregation could take it. And of course, he has thousands of people in his church. And so that was part of the catalyst for coming up with Better Love, is that we could have everyone take it. And then let me give a little jag on this for a second. The cool thing about that is if a whole congregation does it, we can then do an aggregate report on that congregation and give the leadership staff a summary of the state of marriage in their church. And so that's pretty cool. So that's Better Love, and a church can just do that where everybody takes it.
So could a church take this church-wide assessment and then bring you guys in as speakers at a marriage weekend and give the report?
Yeah. In fact, nearly every weekend we do a Better Love date night someplace in the country. And in February, I think we're doing 8 of them.
Wow.
Of weekends. So, Better Love date night. It was really fun. And so everybody that is registered for the date night takes the assessment. And then we do something really fun. We put the pastor and his wife up on the stage with us, and we debrief with them a little bit on their report. And everybody's leaning in because they all want to know about their pastor's latest conflict and everything else. So,
well, what would be a fun episode would be to have my wife and I take this assessment and then have you come back and then just blow us up.
Would love it.
We've done that before with Paul and Virginia Friesen. You probably know Paul and Virginia. And so that might be really fun, because I'm going to go home and I'm going to take this test. I'm very intrigued. So the conflict, talk to me as a weakness in my marriage. Talk to me about conflict resolution.
Yeah, so conflict is a really important skill set. In fact, there's a researcher here in my home city of Seattle. His name is John Gottman, who's done incredible yeoman work on the value of managing conflict well. He's been able to predict with a 93% accuracy rate whether a couple will succeed or fail in their marriage based solely on how they fight. Think about that.
Wow.
Yeah. And so he's looking for several different things, and he calls them the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse and so forth. But here's what Better Love does. It's gonna show you how you are hardwired for managing conflict. Because the way you manage conflict and the way your spouse manages conflict, probably not the same. So just that self-awareness. Remember, I said awareness is curative. Once you become aware of something, then you can kind of begin to change things. Once you become aware of it, that's the key. All right, that's the beginning. That's the starting place. Think of it as: have you ever tried to write your name with your non-dominant hand?
Oh yeah, it didn't go well.
Yeah, you can do it, right? But it feels really awkward. It feels crazy awkward, and it doesn't look so good. Okay. And that's what it's like when we're trying to be something that God didn't create us to be in our personalities. Okay. So if you're fast paced and you're trying to be slow paced, and vice versa. Now you can work on that and have shining moments of doing that, but you're always going to come back to that place of equilibrium of how you are hardwired. Okay. And so when it comes to conflict, the same thing, understanding how you are hardwired to manage it. And Jim, this is the other cool thing at the bottom of the page on conflict. It gets into what we call your hot topics. And have you heard of scripts, psychological scripts, like a play has a script?
No, I haven't.
So these are just, it's another way of referring to hot topics, but you might have something, maybe you're always having a conflict about, let's pick something easy, picking the dirty clothes off the floor. And it's like every day your wife is, hey, there's a hamper over here. Could you just put it in the hamper? Or, hey, when you take your coat off, can you at least hang it up just put it on the floor in the closet rather than over the back of the dining room chair every day? I'd move it. We develop scripts where we're just doing the same thing. We get in these ruts. And so this Better Love will kind of highlight those ruts so that you can go, okay, let's get serious. How do we resolve this so we don't have to keep having this same script, this same hot topic burn us time and time again, right? Might be in-laws, it might be a million different things. But conflict is so important. And I'll say it again, 90%, 9 times out of 10, we resolve our conflict simply by seeing the issue from our partner's perspective. That's the power of empathy.
Empathy, yes.
9 times out of 10. Think about that, Jim.
Yeah.
That's incredible, right? Can you think of the last conflict the two of you had?
Yeah, this morning.
What was it?
We were trying to schedule. So our ministry is getting pretty large, and we are trying to schedule a time to go to a vacation rental we own and work on that. And it was just the scheduling thing between an appointment she had and an appointment that I did not think was important for her to have that could be changed. Yeah. And it just, whoa, where'd that go? It just kind of blew up out of nowhere. And I was like, that didn't go well. Just a real short, about a 2-minute deal, but it was something that didn't need to happen.
And Leslie and I have had that same conflict a million times. And things like, I told you I was in the kitchen. Well, I didn't in the kitchen. I was making dinner. Well, I told you. You said I didn't tell you, but I told you. And now we have to go. It's that kind of stuff that happens. And when you have empathy, all of a sudden the tension drops and you go, okay, I can see why you wouldn't have heard it. I get it completely. What do you want to do to manage this now? Right. And you can be sane about it. So that's the power of that kind of thing when it comes to conflict. And by the way, that's followed the next page by finances, money. And money, of course, is a huge source of conflict in our relationship. Absolutely. When we were designing this whole thing and this report for Better Love, my buddy Dave Ramsey flew out from Nashville and met with me and a couple guys from my team to develop what we call the money matrix. And this is just simply, how are you hardwired, as a saver or a spender? Do you know what your wife is? Is she a saver?
Oh, we're both spenders.
Both spenders. Okay. And that can cause some issues financially.
Yeah. Especially when you're in full-time ministry, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're generous, especially in your spenders like that.
Well, and that's we're generous spenders.
Yeah.
For sure.
And then we look at part of the matrix is your financial fears. And some people have a fear of not having a voice financially, or not getting respect, or not having financial security, or not realizing their dreams. And so we highlight all that. And there's some pretty cool conversation starters around this. I forget who wrote the book, Money Talks and So Can We, but it's always comes down to conversations. Yeah. And so at the bottom of this page, we have some conversation starters like, in my home growing up, money was. How would you finish that? In my home growing up, money was what?
Something we didn't talk about.
There you go. And in my home growing up, money was something we talked about a lot. Okay. And so you begin to do that together as a couple, and you're going to have some new insights. We have about a half dozen little sentence stems like that to do. And so it gets you talking about it, and your action plan will get into that even more. So it's super fun.
This is so powerful. And I love your description of scripts. And so my job as a a married man of 30 years, is for my wife and I to come together and say, hey, what scripts do we need to rewrite? Our financial script, our conflict script, our intimacy script. This is really, really powerful. I'm telling you right now, I love assessments. I love tests. I love doing this stuff with my wife. Every time we do this, it takes our marriage to the next level. So I'm in, man. We're going to go home and do this thing. So what do we do? Where do I go to get this?
Yeah. So you go to betterlove.com, betterlove.com. It's really straightforward and it's super simple. And I'm telling you, I just know this because I hear this from guys all the time. By the way, I live in Seattle. The Seattle Seahawks last year did Better Love. All the guys did it. And I got so many of them that would call and go, hey, what's it going to cost me to get me to come out so I look better than her on the assessment, or stuff like that. And you can't. There's no way to lose. So I want to assure guys that are listening, you're not going to get graded. You're not going to get evaluated. Your wife's not going to hold this thing up and go, there, I told you. It's not that kind of a thing. It's a really fun exercise in self-awareness and empathy. And so, yeah, go to betterlove.com. And by the way, if anybody that's listening to us is like into their love languages, and do you know what your love language is, Jim?
Oh, absolutely. It's words of affirmation is primary, along with, I just blanked out. My wife is acts of service and quality time, and mine is physical touch. And it literally not sex, but physical touch. Yes. But mainly words of affirmation.
Yes, and that's a big distinction. In fact, I just was talking with Gary Chapman, the author of all this, not too long ago. And I said, so many guys will just say, oh, yeah, mine's physical touch. And he says, yeah, they think it's sex, but it's not.
No.
He said, ask them this question. When you get out of the car and you're at the grocery store, the two of you, and you're walking from your car to the front door of the entrance, do you reach out and hold her hand? Mm-hmm. That's physical touch, right?
Yeah. Physical touch sex. Is me touching my wife, having my foot touch her foot or my hand on her hip when we go to bed. Yeah. It has nothing to do with sex. And when my wife does that to me, it's like, oh, wow, honey, because that's how she loves me. But my wife, the funny part, Les, is my wife loves having her feet rubbed. So I am an expert in foot rubbing. And for years, we thought her love language was physical touch. And then we realized we took the test like for the second or third time and realized, oh, no, that's acts of service.
Yeah, acts of service.
It wasn't touch at all. It's about this. She felt being served.
Yeah, you're doing something that's adding value. It's saving her time. It's making it easier. Yep. Well, what we have done with 5 love languages in the Better Love assessment, and this is brand new within the last 2 months.
Oh, wow.
We just added this. And we've been working for 2 years, by the way, with Gary to make this all happen. And what we have done is something that has never been done with 5 love languages before. So we start by looking at your love tank. How full is your love tank? Because that's where he starts in the book, and that's just how loved do I feel right now? And maybe it's a 6 out of 10, maybe it's an 8 out of 10, wherever. But we look at that. And then, of course, we show you your love language that you probably already know intuitively.
Yeah.
A little descriptive paragraph on that. But then the cool part is, our algorithm looks at your love tank in relationship to your love language and to her love language and her love tank, and then shows you, hey, bud, here's what you can do. If you want to really take your relationship to a new level, here's the easiest path. It's not hard because we just outline it. Here's what you got to do. And so we look for the very first time we've been able to do that. You can't do that with paper and pencil. You can't really do that in a counseling session. It takes some real engineering to take all those variables together to be able to paint that path forward for you. So anyway, that's the last page. We skipped a couple of them in here, but that's the last page of Better Love.
I'll tell you what, even with Preparing Rich, I'm always bringing in the love languages. And just because it's so important. So the fact that you've taken Chapman's material, brought it into your material, and you're offering that for any person without being licensed or credentialed for $35, to me, by the way, that's what Preparing Rich charges also.
That's right.
It just makes more sense to me from a marriage perspective to use this Better Love material because you don't need a facilitator. You just need to go take the test.
Yeah, and there's a time and a place for someone to take a deep dive into Symbis or to
Absolutely.
fair and rich. But if you're just looking for something, hey, I just want to have, and by the way, the action plan, like I said at the beginning, it comes with these 4 date nights.
Yeah.
I mean, you want to wow your wife? Just say, I'm in charge of the next 4 date nights, and we're going to do this once a month and look at 2 pages out of the report each time and have these conversation starters. And we have little exercises. It's all really fun to do. I'm telling you, your wife will, you remember that song, Find 1000? If it's violin she loves, let them play, Man, this is how to do that, because you are going to be speaking her love language. You're going to understand her capacity for intimacy and what that means to her, how God designed her to manage conflict and all the rest. It's a pretty incredible gift.
Well, I'll tell this to the guys, because I know we tend to get our head to the grindstone, work mode, Christmas mode. Valentine's around the corner, boys.
Yeah.
So be thinking about this. This is good stuff. So, okay, so betterlove.com. Anything else you want to say in conclusion, Les?
Well, just I'll come back to where I started. Self-awareness, right? And empathy. It might make more sense now that we've gone through this, but when you become self-aware of how God designed you, how God designed your spouse, it just opens up. It's like standing on a vista. Oh, I see things so differently now, right? It's like a long horseback ride, and you get off your horse and you go, oh, I just got to take this view in for a minute, right? This is incredible. Yeah. And then deeper empathy. That capacity to put yourself in each other's shoes. I'll tell you something, the happiest couples on this planet, the couples in the top 10% of well-being and happiness, are couples that have mastered mutual empathy. Those are the happiest couples. And this is a shortcut to doing just that.
I'm really excited to go and take this test. I mean, this is good stuff, man. So, Les, thanks so much for coming on the show. And we threw a little audible today, but yeah.
I got one other thing. It just occurred to me when you just said, is there anything else you want to mention? I have to mention this, something that is completely free. Can I do this?
Yes, I love free stuff.
This is every guy out there on his phone right now. Go to loveology.org, loveology.org. And what you're going to find there, imagine, Jim, if you had, I'll make this super quick. Imagine if you had Gary Chapman and you had every marriage expert and relationship expert at your disposal when you needed them most, right? You just have a little question. How do I set boundaries with my in-laws? And you could call up Henry Cloud, who wrote the book Boundaries, and go, Henry, how do I do that? Well, that's what loveology.org will do. Wow. It's a little platform you carry, and it's on your phone, just searching that, loveology.org. And we have over 800, soon to be 1,000, 3-minute videos that answer one specific question and unique question, each of them by today's experts. So I just felt like I've got to pass that on to these guys out there. It's going to save some guys to this very day. They're going to go look at something and behave differently when they come home at the end of the workday because of a little 3-minute video they watched at loveology.org.
Well, I love it, Les. So I'm excited to partner with you and just causing a major crash of that divorce rate. We want to see marriages healthy. We want to see them vibrant and vital. We want to see the divorce rates decline. We want to see your BHAG come to fruition. So, man, God bless you and your bride for all that you guys do. And, man, we look forward to partner with you in the future. Maybe having you come back and assess my wife and I.
Let's do it. Thanks, pal. So good to be with you.
God bless you, man. Hey, guys, thanks for waiting to the end of the podcast to get this week's Man Law. Remember, guys, the Man Laws are supplied by you, our heroes, and when we use your Man Law, we will send you some swag when you email us at info@menintharena.org with your physical address. This week's Man Law is from David Perez, and he says this: earn your man card every day. And I'll tell you what, David, I couldn't agree more. The life rule here is this: reputations take a lifetime to build and seconds to destroy. So be careful with that man card, guys. Hey, guys, and make sure you head on over to my website at menintharena.org. Grab your free copy of my book, Tell Them What Great Fathers Tell Their Sons and Daughters. Until next time, feel the wet sand on the arena floor. Hear the deafening roar of the crowd. Taste the sweetness of victory. Smell the stench of battle. Get in the game. Get dirty. Grind it out. And be a man.